This is 6 Minutes, the seriously international daily newscast. It's Wednesday, January 29th, and I'm Anne-Sophie Goninet.
And I'm Jacob Shropshire. The sun is rising in Rio de Janeiro and setting in Mumbai. Here in the Worldcrunch newsroom in Paris, it's just after midday. These are the latest headlines. Ukraine targets Russian energy sites in a massive drone attack overnight. Serbia's Prime Minister, Milos Vucevic, resigns after months of anti-corruption protests. And our daily news quiz question comes to us from the United Kingdom. Our top story today is a Ukrainian drone attack targeting Russian energy infrastructure. Russian officials and media outlets reported on Wednesday that the Smolensk nuclear power plant, one of the largest power plants in the country, was targeted during a massive Ukrainian drone attack overnight, alongside other oil and energy sites. This comes as Russian President Vladimir Putin said on Tuesday that Moscow would be willing to hold peace talks with Ukraine, although he ruled out speaking directly with President Volodymyr Zelensky. Zelensky responded that Putin was afraid of negotiations and was doing, quote, everything possible to prolong the war.
And in the US, the White House invited Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to visit next week to meet the newly inaugurated President Donald Trump. This would make Netanyahu the first foreign leader to be invited to the White House under Trump's second term. The meeting comes as an initial 6-week ceasefire is being observed in Gaza, and as the Palestinian Health Ministry reported that 2 Palestinians were killed by Israeli fire in the occupied West Bank overnight and into Wednesday.
Crisis talks between leaders from the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda have begun as M23 rebels have tightened their grip over Goma. The president of the DRC is set to meet the leader of Rwanda for an emergency summit on Wednesday, following intense clashes that killed more than 100 people. The city of almost 2 million in the east of the DRC seems to have been effectively taken over in just 2 days. Now, let's take a closer look at what the international press is covering.
The front page of Serbian tabloid Alo features a photo of a deflated Prime Minister Milos Vucevic after he announced his resignation on Tuesday. His stepping down came after weeks of mass anti-corruption protests following the collapse of a concrete canopy at a train station, which killed 15 people.
We have a piece today from Colombian daily El Espectador on Cuba's invitation to join the BRICS countries. Anne-Sophie, walk us through this piece.
Columnist Ricardo Chica writes that Cuba's opportunity to join the BRICS countries is a lifeboat for its economy and a warning for Donald Trump. He writes, in another piece of trademark bullying, US President Donald Trump has placed communist-led Cuba back onto the US list of sponsors of terrorism. It's an absurd, obsolete instrument and outrageously unfair to people that have already suffered decades of poverty and even hunger from Washington's long-standing blockade. Luckily for the Cubans, there may be a way to compensate for all this harm, through the invitation of the BRICS national economies challenging the West. BRICS now represent half the world population and 40% of its GDP. As they expand with new members, the BRICS nations are gaining strategic weight with collaborative projects among members that are outside the G7. Through China, the BRICS are becoming involved in other initiatives like the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and China's international infrastructure investments, which are of crucial importance to countries facing sanctions like Russia, Iran, and Cuba. The group's leading economies include China, Russia, and Brazil, powers that are sympathetic to the Cuban regime and may turn into the firewall it needs against the Trump administration, keen to bring the communist regime to its knees.
From Egypt this time, we spotted an op-ed from Al-Manasa about the state of Syria. Supporters of the ousted leader Bashar al-Assad regime rallied around the slogan, Assad forever. But now, in the day after forever, the lesson to be learned should be to return to an allyship with the people of Syria, and to learn in earnest the lessons that the Arab Spring taught a decade ago. Having your own car means unlimited freedom, right? A piece in German weekly Die Zeit talks about how having a car can indeed increase life satisfaction. But for people who depend on their car for more than half of their weekly journeys, research shows the negative effects outweigh the benefits of owning their own vehicle. This seems to be because they exercise less, have less contact with other people, and the vehicle can become a financial burden.
We're closing things out with a quiz question from good old London. A resident of the British capital visited 42 establishments in 24 hours, setting a new Guinness World Record. What kind of venues were they? Was it A. pubs, B. museums, C. churches, or D. fish and chips shops? The correct answer is B. A 42-year-old Londoner called Ben Melham set a Guinness World Record by visiting 42 museums across London in 24 hours, traveling on his kick scooter. His journey included stops at the British Museum, Science Museum, and Natural History Museum, breaking the previous record of 33 museums. Melham now plans to set a new record for the most museums visited in a year.
That's the latest from around the world. If you liked this podcast, we'd really appreciate it if you could help us out with a follow, a share, and a 5-star rating on your preferred podcasting platform. For more of the best of the international press delivered exclusively in English every day, visit us at worldcrunch.com. We'll see you here tomorrow. À demain.